The female reproductive system contains two main parts: the uterus, which hosts the developing fetus, produces vaginal and uterine secretions, and can pass sperm through the fallopian tubes, and the ovaries, which produce the female egg cells. These parts are internal. The vagina meets the external organs at the vulva, which includes the labia, clitoris, and urinary meatus. The vagina is attached to the uterus through the cervix, while the uterus is attached to the ovaries via the fallopian tubes. At certain intervals, the ovaries release an ovum which passes through the fallopian tube into the uterus. During the reproductive process, the egg is not a passive recipient, but rather an active participant in the fertilization process. It releases certain molecules that are essential to guiding the sperm, which allow the surface of the egg to attach to the sperm's surface. The egg can then absorb the sperm and fertilization begins. The fertilization usually occurs in the oviducts, but can happen in uterus itself. A zygote will then divide over enough generations of cells to form a blastocyst, which implants itself in the wall of the uterus, where it begins the processes of embryogenesis and morphogenesis. When developed enough to survive outside the womb, the cervix dilates and contractions of the uterus propel the fetus through the birth canal, which is the vagina. The ova are larger than sperm and have formed by the time a female is born. Approximately every month, a process of oogenesis matures one ovum to be sent down the fallopian tube attached to its ovary in anticipation of fertilization. If not fertilized, this egg is flushed out of the system through menstruation. The female internal reproductive organs are the vagina, uterus, uterine tubes, fallopian tubes, oviducts, ovaries, breasts, and mammary gland. Vagina. The vagina is a fibromuscular tubular tract leading from the uterus to the exterior of the body in female mammals or to the cloaca in female birds and some reptiles. The vagina in humans extends from vulva to the cervix. The outer vaginal opening may be partly covered by a membrane called the hymen. At the deep end, the cervix, neck of the uterus, bulges into the vagina. The vagina allows for sexual intercourse and childbirth and channels menstrual flow, which occurs periodically as part of the menstrual cycle. The location and structure of vagina varies among species and may vary in size within the same species. Unlike mammalian males, who usually have the external urethral opening as the only opening for urination and reproduction, mammalian females usually have the urethral opening for urination and the vaginal opening for the genital tract. The vaginal opening is much larger than the nearby urethral opening, and both are protected by the labia in humans. Female insects and other invertebrates also have a vagina, which is the terminal part of the oviduct. The vagina is the place where semen from the male penis is deposited into the female's body at the climax of sexual intercourse, a phenomenon commonly known as ejaculation. The vagina is a canal that joins the cervix, the lower part of uterus, to the outside of the body. It is also known as the birth canal. In amphibians, birds, reptiles, and monotremes, the cloaca is the single external opening for the gastrointestinal tract and the urinary and reproductive tracts. Vaginal moisture is increased during sexual arousal for both human females and other female mammals. This is by way of vaginal lubrication, which reduces friction and allows for smoother penetration of the vagina during sexual activity. Certain disorders may also affect the human vagina. Cervix. The cervix is the lower narrow portion of the uterus where it joins with the top end of the vagina. It is cylindrical or conical in shape and protrudes through the upper anterior vaginal wall. In a non-pregnant woman, the cervix is usually 2 to 3 cm long, around 1 inch, and roughly cylindrical in shape. Approximately half its length is visible to the naked eye. The remainder lies above the vagina beyond view. The narrow central cervical canal runs along its entire length, connecting the uterine cavity and the lumen of the vagina. The lower part of the cervix, known as the vaginal portion of the cervix or ectocervix, bulges into the top of the vagina. The cervical canal is a passage through which sperm must travel to fertilize an egg cell after sexual intercourse. Several methods of contraception, including cervical capes and cervical diaphragms, aim to block or prevent the passage of sperm through the cervical canal. Cervical mucus is used in several methods of fertility awareness, such as Creighton model and Billings method, due to its changes in consistency throughout the menstrual period. During vaginal childbirth, the cervix must flatten and dilate to allow the fetus to progress along the birth canal. Midwives and doctors use the extent of the dilation of cervix to assist decision making during childbirth. Uterus. The uterus is a pear-shaped muscular organ. Its major function is to accept a fertilized ovum which becomes implanted into the endometrium and derives nourishment from blood vessels which develop exclusively for this purpose. The fertilized ovum becomes an embryo, develops into a fetus and gestates until childbirth. If the egg does not embed in the wall of uterus, a female begins menstruation. The uterus or womb is the major female reproductive organ of the humans. The uterus provides mechanical protection, nutritional support and waste removal for the developing embryo, weeks 1 to 8 and fetus from week 9 until the delivery. In addition, contractions in the muscular wall of the uterus are important in pushing out the fetus at the time of birth. The uterus contains 3 suspensory ligaments that help stabilize the position of the uterus and limit its range of movements. The uterosacral ligaments keeps the body from moving inferiorly and anteriorly. The round ligaments restrict posterior movement of the uterus. The cardinal ligaments also prevent the inferior movement of the uterus. Fallopian tubes. The fallopian tubes or oviducts are 2 tubes leading from the ovaries of female mammals into the uterus. On maturity of an ovum, the follicle and the ovaries wall rupture, allowing the ovum to escape and enter the fallopian tube. The mature ovum travels toward the uterus, pushed along by movements of cilia on its inner lining of the tubes. This trip takes hours or days. If the ovum is fertilized while in the fallopian tube, then it normally implants in the endometrium when it reaches the uterus, which signals the beginning of the pregnancy. In non-mammalian vertebrates, the equivalent structures are called oviducts. Histology. A cross section of fallopian tube shows 4 distinct layers: serosa, subserosa, lamina propria and innermost mucosal layer. The serosa is derived from visceral peritoneum. Subserosa is composed of loose adventitious tissues, blood vessels, lymphatics, and outer longitudinal and inner circular smooth muscle coats. Subserosa layer is responsible for peristaltic action of fallopian tube. Lamina propria is a vascular connective tissue. There are two types of cells within the simple columnar epithelium of the fallopian tubes, oviducts. Slated cells predominate throughout the tube but are most numerous in the infundibulum and ampulla. In view of longitudinal variation in histological features of the tube, the isthmus has thick muscular coat and simple mucosal folds, whereas ampulla has complex mucosal folds. Ovaries. The ovaries are small, paired organs that are located near the lateral walls of the pelvic cavity. These organs are responsible for the production of ova and secretion of hormones. The process by which the ovum is released is called ovulation. The speed of ovulation is periodic and impacts directly to the length of a menstrual cycle. Birds have only one functional ovary left, while the other remains vestigial. Ovaries in females are analogous to testes in male in that they are both gonads and endocrine glands. Although ovaries occur in a wide variety of animals, both vertebrate and invertebrates. The human ovaries are whitish in color and located alongside the lateral wall of the uterus in a region called the ovarian fossa. Usually, ovulation occurs in one of the two ovaries at random, releasing an unfertilized egg each menstrual cycle. However, if there was a case where one ovary was absent or dysfunctional, then the other ovary would continue providing eggs to be released without any changes in cycle length or frequency. Histology. The follicular cells are flat epithelial cells that originate from surface epithelium covering the ovary. Granulosa cells. Surrounding follicular cells have changed from flat to cuboidal and proliferated to produce a stratified epithelium, gametes or oocytes. The outermost layer is called the germinal epithelium. Ovarian cortex consists of ovarian follicles and stroma in between them. The follicles present in ovarian cortex included the cumulus ophorus, membrana granulosa, corona radiata, zona pellucida, and primary oocyte. The theca of follicle, antrum, and liquor folliculi are also contained in the follicle. Also in the cortex is the corpus luteum derived from the follicles. The innermost layer is the ovarian medulla. It can be hard to distinguish between the cortex and medulla, but follicles are usually not found in medulla. The ovary also contains blood vessels and lymphatics. Endocrine functions of the ovaries. Ovaries secrete estrogen, testosterone, and progesterone hormone. In women, 50% of testosterone is produced by the ovaries and adrenal glands and released directly into the bloodstream. Estrogen is responsible for the appearance of secondary sex characteristics for females at puberty and for the maturation and maintenance of the reproductive organs in their mature functional state. Progesterone prepares the uterus for pregnancy and the mammary glands for lactation. Progesterone functions with estrogen by promoting menstrual cycle changes in endometrium. Breasts. The breasts are specialized organs of the female body that contain mammary glands, milk ducts, and adipose tissue. The breast is an apocrine gland that produces milk to feed an infant child, for which the nipple of the breast is surrounded by the areola, nipple-areola complex, the skin color of which varies from pink to dark brown and has many sebaceous glands. The two breasts are located on the left and right sides of the thoracic region of the body. The areola, a thickened, highly pigmented band of skin that surrounds the nipple, protects the underlying tissues during breastfeeding. The mammary glands are a special type of pseudoferous glands that have been modified to produce milk to feed infants. Within each breast, 15 to 20 clusters of mammary glands become active during pregnancy and remain active until milk is no longer needed. The milk passes through milk ducts on its way to the nipple, where it exits the body. At puberty, estrogens in conjunction with growth hormone cause breast development. Males do not develop pronounced or physiologically matured breast because their bodies produce lower levels of estrogens and higher levels of testosterone, which suppresses the effects of estrogens in developing breast tissues. The breasts of females are typically far more prominent than those of males. Mammary gland. A mammary gland is an organ in female mammals that produces milk to feed young offspring. Mammals get their name from word mammary. In humans, the mammary glands are situated in the breast. The mammary glands of mammals other than primates such as dogs and cats are sometimes called dugs. The basic components of a mature mammary gland are the alveoli, hollow cavities a few millimeter large, lined with milk secreting cuboidal cells and surrounded by myoepithelial cells. These alveoli join to form groups known as lobules. Each lobule has a lactiferous duct that drains into openings in the nipple. The myoepithelial cells contract under the stimulation of oxytocin, excreting the milk secreted by alveolar units into the lobule lumen toward the nipple. As the infant begins to suck, the oxytocin mediated let down reflex ensues and the mother's milk is secreted, not sucked from the gland, into the baby's mouth. When all the milk secreting tissue leading to a single lactiferous duct, this is called a simple mammary gland. In a complex mammary gland, all the simple mammary glands serve one nipple. Humans normally have two complex mammary glands, one in each breast, and each complex mammary gland consists of 10 to 20 simple glands. The presence of more than two nipples is known as polythelia, and the presence of more than two complex mammary glands is polymestia. The female internal reproductive organs are the vagina, uterus, fallopian tubes, oviducts, ovaries, breast and mammary gland. The vagina in female mammals extends from the vulva to the cervix, is a fibromuscular tubular tract leading from the uterus to the exterior of the body. The cervix is the lower, narrow portion of the uterus where it joins with the top end of the vagina. The uterus is the major female reproductive organ of human that provides mechanical protection, nutritional support and waste removal for the developing embryo. In addition, the female reproductive system produces female sex hormones that maintain the reproductive cycle.